What if I told you a baby was crowned emperor of a mighty empire before he could even speak? And what if that same child spent the rest of his life locked away not for something he did, but simply because he was born? This is not fiction. This is the true tragic tale of Ivan VI of Russia, crowned at just 2 months old, then thrown into the shadows of history. No school, no friends, no freedom. Just silent stone walls and chains. In this video, you'll discover how a child king was hidden from the world under secret orders, how his very existence was erased from coins, books, and memory, and how a failed rescue attempt led to a brutal, bloody ending. LL uncovered the power games that stole his throne, the cruel fate that followed, and the dark decisions of Russia's rulers that kept him locked away for 23 years. If you think you know royal history, think again. This story has secrets most people have never heard, so stay with us till the end, because Ivan's story deserves to be remembered. Welcome to History Screen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another forgotten tale from the past. Ivan Antonovich was born on August 23, 1740 in St. Petersburg. From the moment he entered the world, his name carried the weight of an empire. He was part of the Romanov dynasty, Russia's ruling family. But he didn't just inherit royal blood. He inherited a dangerous legacy of power struggles, betrayal, and ambition. His mother, Anna Leopoldovna, was the niece of Empress Anna of Russia. And Empress Anna had a problem. She ruled without children of her own. Her health was failing. She needed an heir, but one she could control, so she made a bold move. Just weeks before her death, Anna named the newborn Ivan as her successor. He was only a few weeks old. But that was the point. A baby couldn't rule. So she appointed her powerful and feared advisor, Ernst Johann Byron, as regent. The man who would rule in Ivan's name, Byron, wasn't a Romanov. He was a Baltic German with no royal blood. But through Empress Anna's favor, he had climbed to the highest seat of influence in Russia. And now, with a baby emperor in place, Byron saw his chance to hold real power without ever wearing the crown. Then, on October 28, 1740, everything changed. Empress Anna died. The empire held its breath. A 2-month-old infant was now Tsar of Russia. His name was Ivan. Vying the throne, already unstable, was about to shake. But while Ivan wore the title, it was Byron who sat behind the curtain pulling the strings. That wouldn't last long, though. Baby Ivan was crowned emperor. In name, real power was in the hands of Duke Ernst Byron, the man Empress Anna had trusted to guide the empire. But Byron wasn't loved by many, especially not by the Russian nobility. He was seen as arrogant, harsh, and too loyal to foreign interests. Just weeks after Ivan's coronation, whispers of revolt filled the royal corridors. Ivan's parents, Anna Leopoldovna and her husband, Anton Ulrich, were not willing to let Byron rule through their son. In a bold and silent move, they had him arrested in the middle of the night. No blood was spilled, but Byron's reign as regent was over before it had even begun. With Byron gone, Ivan's mother, Anna, stepped forward to rule as regent, but she was only 22 years old, young, inexperienced, and overwhelmed. She leaned heavily on her advisors, especially the skilled diplomat Count Osterman. Together, they tried to bring stability to the empire. But behind the palace walls, danger still brewed. Just 1 year later, on a cold December night in 1741, another twist came. Ivan's cousin Elizabeth Petrovna, the daughter of Peter the Great, staged a palace coup dressed in a soldier's uniform. She led a small force of loyal guards through the Winter Palace. No shots were fired, no blades drawn. The guards, loyal to her father's legacy, simply stepped aside. By morning, Elizabeth had taken the throne. Ivan, just over a year old, was no longer emperor, but his story wasn't over. It was about to turn darker, much darker, after the palace coup that removed him from the throne. Little Ivan VI, just over a year old, was no longer treated like a ruler. He became a prisoner, not because he had committed a crime, but because he was seen as a threat. Ivan, along with his mother Anna Leopoldovna and the rest of his family, was first taken to Riga. From there, they were locked inside the cold, lonely walls of Dynamo Fortress. The family was kept under heavy guard outside the stone walls. The empire moved on, but inside time stood still. It didn't end there. Soon they were moved again, this time to a remote and frozen outpost called Kolmogorov. It was far from any city or road hidden, deep in Russia's north here. The isolation became even worse. Ivan was separated from his family. For the next 12 years, he lived in a small room guarded by a single jailer. No visitors, no friends. He was growing up in total silence by the time he was a teenager. Ivan had already spent more than a decade behind walls in 1756 Empress. Elizabeth decided to tighten the secrecy. Ivan was quietly transferred to the grim fortress of Schlisselburg. There he became more than just a prisoner. He became a secret Ivan. The commandant of the prison was not told who the boy really was. Only a few trusted guards knew the truth, and they were given strict orders. If anyone ever tried to free him, he was to be killed immediately. His name was banned from being spoken. His face was erased from official portraits. Coins with his image were melted down. Government records were rewritten. It was as if he had never existed. This practice has a name: condemnation of memory. It's a way of making someone disappear without killing them, removing them from history itself. For Ivan VI, this meant more than just imprisonment. He wasn't only a prisoner of the state. He was a prisoner of silence, stripped of identity, trapped in a world that had forgotten him on purpose even. Vi was never given a chance to live a real life. After being moved from one prison to another, he eventually ended up in a fortress so secret that even the guards weren't told who he was. He received no formal education, no tutors, no lessons, nothing. But somehow during his long years of isolation, he managed to teach himself to read. The only book he was ever allowed was the Bible, that small act reading Holy Scripture alone in a cold stone cell was one of the few freedoms he had left. As he grew older, isolation began to take a toll on his mind. He would sometimes speak aloud about being a sovereign. In quiet moments, he referred to himself as emperor, as if he still believed he had a throne, a court, or a country. No one around him ever answered. There were no visitors, no contact with the outside world, just a prison guard and silence. Guards had strict orders passed down from both Empress Elizabeth and later from Catherine. The great Ivan was to remain unseen, untouched by politics, and if necessary punished. If he tried to escape or cause any trouble, he could be beaten. His legs were sometimes shackled, not because he was dangerous, but to make sure he never became one. But the darkest order was kept secret. If anyone tried to free him, if a rescue attempt ever came, the guards were instructed to kill him immediately. No hesitation, no warning. This wasn't a prison sentence. It was a silent execution stretched over decades. Even the commandant of the Schlisselburg fortress was told only the basics: his name, his birth, and that he must never be allowed to leave. He wasn't to be called emperor or prisoner. He was simply a special person under royal watch. Even DA wasn't just locked away. He was erased. No monuments, no public mourning, not even a trial, just a forgotten name in a cold fortress, clinging to the only thing he had left: his fading memory of being born a king. Chapter 5. The failed rescue. By 1764, Ivan had been in prison for over 2 decades. Few people even remembered he existed, but one young officer did. Lieutenant Vasily Mirovich was stationed at Schlisselburg Fortress, the same place where Ivan was being held in total isolation. The guards had orders never to speak to the prisoner, and most didn't even know his name. But somehow Mirovich discovered the truth, realized that the mysterious man in the deepest cell was none other than Ivan VI, forgotten emperor of Russia. Driven by ambition, or maybe by guilt, Mirovich decided to free him. He forged a royal pardon, claiming it came from the empress herself. His plan was bold and dangerous. He gathered a small group of soldiers loyal to him, and they prepared for the rescue. On the night of July 16, 1764, he made his move, but things didn't go as planned. There was a delay. The guards hesitated. Confusion spread inside the fortress. The men guarding even remembered their secret orders: if anyone tried to free the prisoner, they were to kill him immediately, no questions asked. And they did as Mirovich approached the cell. It was already too late. Ivan VI was dead, stabbed to death by his own guards. Rescue had failed before it began. Mirovich and his co-conspirators were arrested on the spot. Within days, he was tried and executed for treason. Ivan's body was buried in an unmarked grave. No ceremony, no name, just silence again of V's life ended the way it began, out of his control. On the morning of July 16, 1764, just 23 years old, he was killed by his guards inside the fortress at Schlüsselburg. The order had been in place for years. If anyone tried to free him, he was to be executed immediately. No trial, no questions, just silence. His body was buried in an unmarked grave. No headstone, no ceremony, as if he had never existed, even in death, even remained a secret. Only a small circle inside the Russian court even knew he was gone. Outside those stone walls, the world moved on his. Family suffered just as much. His mother, Anna Lepodovna, who once held the title of regent, died, young, only 27 years old, while giving birth during captivity. His father, Prince Anthony Ulrich of Brunswick, lived out his days under strict arrest, never allowed to return to his homeland. He died in 1774, still a prisoner of the Russian crown. Ivan's younger siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, spent decades in confinement before Catherine the Great finally allowed them to leave Russia. But even their release wasn't a return to freedom. They were sent to Denmark under strict supervision, no power, no titles, no real home. Their lives were shaped entirely by fear of what they represented to the Russian throne. The children of Ivan's bloodline were a danger, a possible rallying point for rebellion. It was safer to keep them far away, tucked into quiet foreign. Exile watched closely until the end of their days. Over time, Ivan VI became more than just a forgotten emperor. His story turned into legend. Some compared him to the mysterious man in the Iron Mask, a prisoner whose identity was too dangerous to reveal. To others, even symbolized the cruelty of royal politics. Where a crown could be a curse, he became a ghost. In Russian memory, his name erased from official histories, coins bearing his image were melted down. Speaking of him was forbidden under the harshest punishments. And yet whispers about the infant emperor in chains survived behind closed doors. Even Vi was born into power, and yet he never ruled before he could walk or speak. He was crowned emperor of Russia. But from that moment on, his fate was sealed not by anything he did, but by the cruel games of politics and power he spent his entire life behind walls, watched by guards, hidden from the world. He was never allowed to be a child, never allowed to be a man. A name removed from history, a life erased before it even began. His story is not just sad, it's haunting, a reminder of how easily the innocent can become victims in a ruthless world. And though Ivan never sat on the throne, though he never issued a law or led an army, his story still echoes through the corridors of history. Ivan never got to rule, but his story still rules our history. If this tale moved you or made you think, let us know in the comments what historical mystery or forgotten figure you want us to explore next. And if you haven't already liked this video, subscribe to History Screen and hit the bell so you never miss another hidden chapter from the past.